Hi, and welcome to the third episode of Best Practices for Creating Pop-up Quizzes for Videos. In this video, we're going to talk about a survey that we conducted on the site. So we asked you 4 questions about creating and using video quizzes in the lessons. Thank you very much for your responses. Here are the 4 questions. Here is what you thought, and here is our 2 cents on these 4 issues. The first question we asked you was about the ideal length of a video that you would use in a typical 45-minute lesson.
And here's what you said. So we've had a good mix of answers. The shortest answers we received were about 2 minutes for the length of the video. And then it went all the way up to 10, 15, with a lot of sort of like 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 3, 4, 6 minutes in between. So a good mix.
So we've actually looked at the statistics for this one, and we found that the average length of a video on the site is 5.5 minutes, so 5.5 minutes. And we think that's generally a good length. I mean, every lesson is going to be different, and you know what your lesson aim is and how you can get there, and you're the best judge of this. But talking about the average 45-minute lesson, assuming that it exists, you have your aim with the video, whether that's listening or grammar or vocabulary, and you probably want your students to watch the video at least 2 times. And so you want to make sure that you have time for the stages that you want to have before they watch and after they have watched. So what do I mean by this? You want to generate interest in the topic of the video. You want to activate background knowledge. Then you want to orient your students to the video. What is the genre? What's happening? What is the context? And then you want to do a first kind of low demand listening. And then you want to do a second more in detail listening. And for both stages, you want to leave plenty of time probably for feedback, so that you can actually discover, what is it that students are struggling with, so how you can help them learn, how you can help them grow. And then a lot of teachers like to do some follow-up after watching a video, and this could be productive skills, so it could be speaking or writing. So if you're thinking about having a 45-minute lesson and you want to make sure you have time for all of this, then it makes sense to choose a video that's 3, 4, 5 minutes long. But having said that, we know that each lesson is different, and sometimes you'll say, you know what, I want a 10-minute video, and that's what's going to work for me.
Of course, not all videos that we find on the internet are at the right length, but luckily on the iSci Collective side, you can crop videos really easily. Let me show you how. So you find your video, you paste it here, the link, and then you click on Make Your Own Custom Quiz. You'll be taken to the page where you can add your questions, and you can see this video is almost 10 minutes. And so you select the bit that you want to cut, and then you click on Add Element to Video Lesson, and you click on the scissors icon, and this is going to help you crop the video. So here the red bit is what you're going to get rid of. Here with these triangles, you can very easily adjust what it is that you actually don't want to see. And if you expand by clicking on this little arrow, then you can see the start time and the end time of the bit that you will cut. So quite straightforward. And once you have found the right thing, you can just delete it and it's going to disappear from your video. You can repeat this as many times as you want, and so you can create just the perfect length of video for your lesson quite easily. Here is what you said for this one. The majority of you said that the ideal number is between 5 and 10, and then some of you thought that there should be at least 10 questions. And then this was also significant. Some people said no more than 5. So if you add these two, the orange and the blue, together as well, then the red seems to be a good kind of middle ground for most people, between 5 and 10 questions.
For me, a key consideration here is to ask questions that will actually lead to learning. So, of course, if you want, you can have a question or two to which, everybody is going to get the answer right. And that's good for confidence, maybe. But, learning happens when not everybody gets the answers right. And so I like to pitch my questions at a level of difficulty that I know is going to pose a challenge for some students. Now, I want to make sure that I have plenty of time in feedback to actually address why a certain answer is correct or incorrect, or why this was the answer rather than the other option. And so because of this, if we're talking about a video that's 4 to 5 minutes, I'd probably have, around 8 questions, because in my teaching experience, less is often more. Sometimes we can give ourselves the illusion that we're covering a lot in a lesson, but covering a lot and teaching is not necessarily the same thing. This is what I have found. So I try to limit the number of questions to around, 7 or 8. So I choose the questions that are likely to lead to the most amount of learning, because that's what I'm after in my lessons, whatever the focus of my video is.
Well, this was very mixed. So people seem to have all sorts of different opinions about this, which makes sense because we don't all teach in the same context. Is this a one-to-one student? Are these young learners? Are these business students? This is going to influence what our lessons are like. But let's have a look at the results. So the biggest group here was at least 10 seconds, followed by it doesn't matter, they can follow each other very quickly, and then at least half a minute, with lots of different answers where people saying it depends on the video, some people saying it's best to give the students control, and they can pause the video and then there can be a discussion. So the bottom line is lots of different opinions here about a time that should elapse between 2 questions.
So again, your students best, your teaching context the best. But in general, it's nice to give students some time to just enjoy the video rather than, being continuously bombarded with questions. And of course, it will also depend on, what your focus is. And so how often you can ask a question. Let's say you're focusing on adjectives. How often is there a good question, a really good question that you can ask about adjectives? I mentioned that we looked at the statistics for all the video quizzes on the site. And so the 30 seconds seems to be confirmed by the numbers, because overall length of the video is 5.5 minutes. And usually there are 13 questions. So if we do the maths there, that's like a question every 30 seconds. And so that could be a good rule of thumb. But again, you know what works best for your students. In my experience, again, less is often more. You can make it more memorable. Students will be able to process it more in depth. And there's time to just enjoy the video.
And then last but not least, our 4th question targeted how many different focuses the video quiz should have. And by this we mean a language focus. So this could be grammar, narrative tenses, or a vocabulary focus. So it could be things you find in a house. How many of those? And the majority of you said 2 focuses are fine, but no more. And quite a lot of you said just a single focus. There's also a bigger group which said the more the better. We'll come back to this soon.
I think that the answer of 2 focuses, no more than 2 focuses, is a good rule of thumb. Again, you're the best judge of what works best in your given lesson, in your teaching context. But unless it is a revision lesson, when you maybe want to include all the grammar items that you covered, or all the vocabulary areas that you looked at, or all the different ways of developing the listening skill that you focused on, it's a good idea to limit the focuses to 1 or 2 things, because then this can help concentrate what happens in feedback. And so this can make sure that really when students leave my lesson, they leave knowing something more than they did when they entered the lesson. Because this way I can really give our full attention to the 1 or 2 target areas, whether this is looking at a grammatical structure, or looking at some vocabulary, or looking at a part of the listening skills, so focusing on a listening sub-skill if we want to really go into receptive skills development at a higher level. So that's it. Those were the results of the survey that we conducted. Thank you very much if you sent us a response. We want to do other surveys like this in the future. If you have a good question or area that we should explore, you can let us know in a YouTube comment on this video. So thanks again for your responses. we've been trying to make it clear throughout the video that this is not like the definitive answer to teaching and here is how you should do all your lessons, because we know every lesson and every situation is different. But we do believe that these are 4 key questions that you want to ask yourself as you're planning your video lesson and as you're creating or adapting the video quiz. So we hope you find it useful and thought-provoking, and we'll be back soon with another edition. Till then, goodbye.